Standards, doesn't matter what industry that you're in, standards are there to improve safety and increase public trust.
Welcome to another episode of the Unmanned Podcast powered by USI. I'm Matt Hernandez, your host, and today we speak to Andrew Karras, an airline transportation pilot, certified flight instructor, and unmanned aircraft systems pro. He currently serves as the director of the International Standard for Business Aircraft Operations, also known as IS-BAO. In this episode, Andrew and I speak about standards, safety management systems, and his transition from the military to his current role. Andrew is also a graduate of USI's own drone boot camp. I'm excited. Let's go. Good morning, and I guess good afternoon, Andrew. What time is it over there?
Yeah, it's about 3 in the afternoon here, so over in the United Kingdom. So great to be here.
Well, thank you again for joining us. If you can give us a little bit about your background and an overview of your role at the at IS-BAO.
First off, thanks for having me, Matt. This is a great opportunity. I'm Andrew Karras, Program Director at the International Business Aviation Council. I am the Program Director for the IS-BAO program, which is the International Standard for Business Aircraft Operations. Been in this role 4 years now. Great opportunity to kind of be a part of the international aviation operations from around the globe. I come from a military background, 20 years in the Air Force. Then after that, flew corporate operations for private and commercial operators on large business jets. And then during both kind of opportunities, I got involved in safety management programs, accident investigation, etc. So prior to this job, it kind of dovetailed into all my experiences dovetailed into this role, supporting business aviation and the aviation industry at large.
Coming from the Air Force, they were pretty much foundational in development of the SMS safety management systems and things of that nature. And then that bled over into all the military branches, as well as into different organizations in industry and maritime and hospital industry. Everyone in these major industries has kind of latched on to the idea of safety as an organization and safety management systems as a tool to manage that. And you brought that over to IS-BAO, and I think that's super impactful over there. So exciting to hear. We briefly talked about IS-BAO. If you can kind of give me an idea of their reach and kind of what is IS-BAO and what is it that they do for our audience?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. IS-BAO, International Standard for Business Aircraft Operations, is an industry standard, just like you mentioned with healthcare and business and banking or other industries. They all have industry standards. So IS-BAO is the industry standard for business aircraft operations. Anybody flying private jets, private aircraft, commercial aircraft, usually the charters, the Part 135 operators. This is what it's tailored for. It's a program to provide standards and recommended practices to the industry. It's a recognized ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization standard, just like a few others that are out there. And it's really designed to unify business aviation with the larger aviation industry that's out there, your commercial operators and everybody else that's using the aviation space.
For those of you who are watching who might not know, they develop a system, and Andrew, chime in too, like they develop a system of steps, if you would, or guidance that would help make sure that these business aviators are aligned with commercial operations and other users of airspace globally. And those resources help make those businesses more successful because they're more efficient and they're sharing the airspace in a similar manner one to another. How is it, or what is the significance of now having these types of standards for the drone industry?
Yeah, so I'll start big picture, Matt, and really standards, doesn't matter what industry that you're in, standards are there to improve safety and increase public trust. This is a booming industry, rapidly growing. The technology is advancing every day. These aircraft and these systems are going to be utilizing the same space as your helicopters, your fixed wing aircraft, your airships, your advanced air mobility that's coming out there. They're sharing the same sky. So IS-BAO or any industry standard is there to improve safety and increase public trust. Whether it doesn't matter what category of aircraft you're flying. They're also there to improve interoperability of these systems and of these organizations that are using that space. So if you're an organization and you're utilizing this technology for drones to do agricultural survey, industrial research, or infrastructure inspections, you need to align yourself with the industry, and that's the aviation industry. You need to have a standard that aligns your organization, your policies, procedures that align with the industry. And that starts internationally and flows back down into regionals. And then as well, I guess the third pillar is that it drives regulation that unifies the industry into an acceptable way of operating.
We don't always agree on what the way the drone industry should be implemented and how those operations should take place right now. Currently, there's a lot of work behind the scenes on all of these regulatory bodies across the globe, and then standards bodies as well. So can you give me a kind of a high level idea of what's the current state of drone standards? I mean, does IS-BAO have a solid document of the standard, or is it still in flux? And what are we thinking about that?
Yeah, so IS-BAO was created over 20 years ago from the International Business Aviation Council, IBAC. IBAC has been around for over 40 years. They joined as an observer organization at the International Civil Aviation Organization. And then after about 20 years of their existence, they created the IS-BAO program. And it was born from operators and the member associations of IBAC to unify the industry when it came to safety standards and recommended practices. Its foundation is it's not one single aircraft category. It's designed to be, I guess, non-denominational in the aircraft categories. So the core of it is safety management systems, your foundational practices. And then we have standards that go across 12 additional chapters, from training to operations to maintenance to security to transportation of goods, organizational structures, etc. So the foundation is there, and then we have kind of little spin-off tentacles there that are tailored specifically towards different categories, from rotor wing, fixed wing, and then remotely piloted aircraft systems. So an organization can utilize our standard, can configure it to their operation, and using our tools, once you configure the IS-BAO to your operation, it will be tailored to you and what you need to focus on.
So generally speaking, you try to go into it as a neutral party, and you're looking at it broadly and with like a wide aperture in developing the standards. Yes, you'll have some specific things with regards to maybe passengers or pilot activities, but if those aren't applicable to the drone user, they still use the same standard or guide, and just they kind of just say those don't apply to me.
Yeah, that's correct. Not every standard in IS-BAO is going to apply to every operator. It just depends on your objectives and your size and complexity of the operation. The most important thing to remember is that the IS-BAO standard is performance-based. Okay, it's non-prescriptive, it's performance-based. It gives you the standard, and then the organization decides how they conform to it. So there's multiple ways of getting to the solution that works best for you, and that's the other baseline for IS-BAO, is that we're not going to prescribe that training has to occur on a specific frequency. or anything. It's very broad. It's performance based. It's up to the organization to determine the best way to conform to that.
That's interesting. And does that also have differences between regions and countries? Like, does your organization address different CAAs or certifying or regulatory agencies?
Yes, it does ask you, do you have any, national regulatory requirements to comply with? And then some regions do have some national regulatory requirements. Some of them do not. But the standard will ask you that question of what you need to comply with. And if you, for one example, if you fly internationally, you may have to conform to several different national regulations. When it and depends on your operation, but a drone operator, may be working in several different countries. The United States, they may go to the region of Africa or Europe or South America, and it's going to ask them, do you have any national regulations that you need to conform with? And you'll have to look at that, and the organization will have to decide on how they conform.
I would assume that you would have certain guides available to industry that would help them get, at least aligned to this standard, and how do they receive those materials and interact with IS-BAO and IBAC?
Yeah, we provide the documents, a full document suite and library. We're a nonprofit organization, so we're focused on the outcome of the industry. We don't just provide the standards; we provide the book too. The guidance material that walks you through what the standard is, what the expectations are, give you some examples, what's the background and intent, and then if you go through an assessment process, what's the expectation during the assessment process from the auditor
Mm-hmm.
side. So the whole assessment is provided to you. And then, if an organization is still unsure of what they need to do, they can reach out to us. Our team, we've implemented IS-BAO over this 20 plus years in over 1,700 organizations worldwide. We have roughly over a dozen drone operators that have started to utilize IS-BAO in their commercial operations, either as a standalone organization, just flying drones, or maybe the flight department of the corporation is starting to incorporate drones into their space. We're seeing a lot of that in the utility and the infrastructure industry.
You are seeing a lot of these traditional aviation departments now utilizing or adding to their fleet drone technology, and it does change a little bit of their operations and how do they manage training for this, which is essentially a tool, but it is a specialized tool. So they have to manage training differently, and they still roll it up under, in most cases, that aviation department. In some cases, they break it out. But I think that's interesting to talk about those operators expanding their fleets in that way.
And I think these companies that are incorporating or developing, including this technology into their business, and if they look to the aviation department, they have a library of lessons learned. They have the framework to go to, and then to tweak and make some adjustments to. But if you have an issue, you're going to go to the source. You're going to go to the well of the structure, and you can go to that aviation department and pull and utilize those lessons and build off of that. It'll take time to kind of mold what you're looking for, but one of the big things using standards and looking to other aviation department or others is that you improve efficiency. The processes that are put in place with safety management systems and standards improve efficiency of an organization. It lets you learn from mistakes or things that may cost you financially or in time. It assists you in developing a smooth and efficient operation that eventually turns into return on the investment.
As you're speaking, I was thinking that, like, how do we convince a drone operator that these standards and these methods and best practices that were born from manned aviation but are translatable to the drone industry in the drone vertical, how do we convince them that it is important, and it shouldn't just be thrown out? And in some cases, people look at a drone as a technological tool that should move as fast as light, and shouldn't subscribe to these standards, frankly, because they're burdensome and slow in some cases. And you had just spoke about how they increase efficiencies, and they do have a return on investment. So I think that's a great commentary towards why it's important.
An organization that wants to get into this, the RPAS or drone space, they're going to invest quite a bit of time and money, capital and energy, you name it, into getting this up, and they want to start, getting that return on the investment fast. But you need to start with the right framework. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of missteps, some costly issues that go along the way. And if you're not learning from events, or you're not unifying your organization in the operation from central operations out to the line where the pilot and the crew are operating, if you're not learning from that or unifying those, then you're going to have a fractured operation. And so I recognize, and I think you hinted on it, Matt, is that there's some impatience that's built in to the initial startup. But all we can advocate for is, hey, get your framework in place. Be patient with how this program, a safety management program, is going to operate. Be patient, and then eventually you will see the returns.
In general, safety management systems are, what are what we're talking about there. Those are bespoke too and right sized to your organization. It's literally not a one size fits all. Just boom. It literally has to be built to fit your organization, and it is modular like that. And so I think some folks look at it and they get overwhelmed. But when you really sit down and think about it, if I'm a one person operation with a drone, I can still have a safety management system and incorporate it into my operations. It simply needs to be maybe one small flight risk assessment, a policy on how I operate, and maybe a weekly audit that I do to make sure that all my toolage is up to speed, and the maintenance is taken care of. Something simple like that. I'm making it literally right here as we speak.
Yeah,
But it can be really simple like that, or complex too.
It doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to use sophisticated, costly. You're a one person operation. You don't need to use a sophisticated software program for your safety management. You could use small manual on how you operate, reporting tools.
Yep.
So if you have an incident, you can write it down. Hey, what was the cause? What happened? What was the cause? How we're gonna fix it? It can be a simple spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And then,
And then you take that and you learn from that and you incorporate those changes in the future, hopefully growing.
yeah, and you look back on it. It's kind of like a journal. You look back on it and you go, hey, how
Yeah.
did last quarter go? We
Yeah.
had a couple of incidents that cost us this much money,
Yeah.
cost this much time.
No one gets to read my journal. Expanding on kind of that technology component that we talked about, you talked about standards, and you talked about how it's applicable across the board because we're writing it universally. But how are we approaching emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and autonomy? Like, those are very unique and specific in some manner to that drone vertical. Yes, the commercial airlines have had autopilot, sophisticated autopilot for years, but autonomy is significantly different. And so how are you approaching that, and how is that influencing the standards?
I think, if you took a high level on, artificial intelligence or autonomous systems, you're looking at implementing a new element to your operation. Okay, that could be anything. Let's just take high level on it. Let's, instead of taking a look at the granular artificial intelligence or the autonomous system. But if you look at, you're going to incorporate your organization, you're going to incorporate an autonomous system, software, process, procedure, artificial intelligence, whatever. you're introducing a change into your operation. You're throwing a rock into the lake. It's going to cause some ripples. You need to take a look at what that is going to do to your operation. Use the change management structure. Okay, I'm gonna add something. What do I need to do? Do I need to train people for it? How do I need to train them? What is this going to do for me? And if you go through that systematic process of just thinking about it, and then if you have different departments that need to um, synchronize on it, if you use that change management process, you can synchronize your group so that when the new equipment does come in, everybody is aligned with how it's going to be used, how it's going to be trained, how it's going to be incorporated into the manuals, the policies, procedures. This has been done in aviation, in any industry for decades.
I guess the commentary though is internally we have these tools and processes that we can implement to utilize that technology, but I guess standards wise, there's no real or there's not a solidified standard for autonomy in aviation yet.
No, and I think that's where the unified effort to create standards in this space starts at the International Civil Aviation Organization. So ICAO has been looking at this space for over 10 years, and being involved, being part of IBAC, we've reached out to you guys at Unmanned Safety Institute and Josh Olds to accompany IBAC to be part of the working group on RPAS standards and recommended practices. And I would say that autonomous operation is a very tough equation to solve that unifies the entire world. Because when you're talking about autonomy, and you're talking about command and control and C2 frequency spectrums and everything, you have to get all of the ICAO states aligned on how it's going to be. And
we can't even agree on metrics and other units of measurement. So
so the big challenge is with in the drone in RPAS space is that the technology is advancing faster than regulation can move. ICAO doesn't move fast, regulation doesn't move fast, but the industry is advancing at a, you're on the high, the regulation is in the slow lane and the drone space is in the fast lane, lapping you.
That's very true. I mean, it takes, 20 plus years to get a new Boeing model out the door and a new, RPAS unit gets upgraded every year. So
the ICAO is now, they're working on a lot of things, air traffic management, so that's sharing of the airspace. And then the command and control is another question. How can you create a framework for drones to operate and have that element of safety, because they need to be in constant communication. And if they lose link, if they lost link, what is the mechanism to ensure safety is not compromised? And so that's how do you then answer that question? And I think that comes into the programming of autonomous systems and everything, and how that's going to ensure that in the unlikely event of a lost link, that you are going to still ensure the same level of safety, because that's what the public wants.
No, I agree. And that's what we should want too as operators, is you want that reliability and redundancy that we feel comfortable operating over open crowds and non-participants is commonly what's referred to as in the language. You talked about USI being partners in developing some of these new standards and developing some of the new regulation. And we're super excited about that and very proud to be a partner of that. But you also said before that you cut your teeth on manned and the manned world and things like that. But I think you've also had a chance to participate in some of USI's programs. Can you tell us how that transition went from you're flying fixed wing aircraft to now being where you are
Yeah.
at IS-BAO as a director of standards there.
Yeah, so story I was getting out of the military service, looking for the next chapter. I was turning the page on my military time and going into the civil sector, and I'd always been a hobbyist, in model aircraft and things, and I saw this, the drone space kind of, uh, making a charge, and wanted to, see. I was interested. And USI had a great program with the U.S. Department of Defense, the Skill Bridge program that I participated in. Went through you guys boot camp, and I was amazed at the technology that was out there, that somebody could, with solid training, could participate in the industry with a high level of skill and safety. I got involved in it, tried to kind of get that going. Other opportunities like this one popped up, that kind of sparked my interest. But I'm still there. I may not be on the line out there in the field, but it's great to be part of kind of the shaping of the future of the industry when it came to standards and recommended practices. And it's great to kind of have you guys, sitting in that room up there at ICAO with us, to be part of it, so that it flows the right way to the industry. I think having trade association representation is great, but you need to have the frontline industry in the room as well, because they're the ones that it's going to be most impactful to.
For our audience out there that may be watching that are military, Andrew talked about the Skill Bridge program. Hopefully most of I'm an Army Black Hawk pilot formerly, but I went through a similar program called Camo to Commerce. And in both of these programs, for those watching, support military members transitioning from their military service and getting them into industry and launching their next careers and their next steps. And Andrew participated in Skill Bridge, joining USI's training, and took our training, and that hopefully launched him into continuing to grow and find new avenues to utilize his skill sets, because it certainly did for me when I was transitioning from the Army and going into the drone space as well. So super interesting. And Andrew, what would you also have for advice for those individuals watching who are entering or want to enter aviation or the drone space, and maybe they're even interested in the standards and compliance? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, if I can go back on kind of you mentioned kind of workforce. I think the
Yeah.
workforce development of this industry is really going to kind of be the fuel of it, for this drone industry to really kind of elevate itself. The development of the workforce needs to be strong. It needs to be standardized. It needs to be, in line with the other sectors of the industry. If you look at a lot of the training providers, for your Black Hawk helicopter, or somebody flying a fixed wing aircraft, you're going to go maybe to a big training provider, and they got the cornered the workforce market. But the drone space, uh, you know, advice I have for somebody going out into this industry is find find a quality training provider. And you guys really kind of provided that in the boot camp, down there at Port St. Joe that I went there. I know you guys have expanded kind of across the country and going into, high schools and colleges. I mean, I think that's the expansion that's going to unify the workforce, by having these technical colleges, or these high schools, or any educational institution out there that has this framework. That's what's going to help. So other recommendations, hey, you find the training provider, as well as, hey, don't just don't just limit yourself on just flying the aircraft. There's a multitude of expertise and requirements, from software to maintenance, is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that's
that's going to be a big one.
it's going to come in there. the electromagnetic spectrum, you name it. There's a multiple things. So I would say research the industry. You'll have doors that open within this sector of aviation, and walk in it. If you don't like it,
Yeah.
go in the other door.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a multitude of things, but I would recommend it. It's exciting. It's growing. You don't know where it's gonna end up, and it just won't end. It'll just keep going and advancing, and it'll be more and more fruitful.
And back when you went in, we did have the Panama City schoolhouse, and now we have our Orlando schoolhouse, which is our main headquarters, and going to be kind of the de facto campus. And then we have campuses again, like you said, we have many campuses in Phoenix and South Carolina, Virginia, and so there's plenty of opportunity for our audience to find a training partner that will help skill those individuals and get them into the drone industry and get them launched.
Yeah, you guys had
Yeah,
the one site down there at Port St. Joe in Panama City, and we're is out in kind of the quiet part of the Panhandle of Florida. And now you guys have expanded in the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. I mean, dramatic
yeah.
expansion there. But
Yeah, and
love the
that's to your
experience.
point. I mean, people are wanting to get a baseline knowledge and get experience and be proficient at this and go out into the field ready to rock and roll day one. And so they're seeing that, and they're seeing that capability through our training. Thank you, Andrew, for your time. I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, no, this was great, Matt. Thanks for the invite. Happy to do it again, and I know that we'll see you guys in the future. So appreciate the time and opportunity.
Thanks, Andrew. I hope you all enjoyed hearing about IS-BAO and the impact of standards on drone operations and his transition into that space. For more information on USI and our educational offerings, please visit flyusi.org or email us at info@flyusi.org. And as always, remember, please like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you again on the Unmanned Podcast.